Hello, everyone. This is Under the Mayo, and welcome to another episode of Profiles in Gaming Enthusiasm. I am very honored to have our guest, the director of Metal Hellsinger, David Goldfarb. David, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I just had a little breakfast, a little late day
Hmm.
breakfast. I know it's nighttime where you are,
Yeah,
and just so I'm
that's all right.
just kind of getting started now. I guess your day's probably winding down.
Yep. All good.
How late do your nights go? As I know I think you're a family man, right? Do you
Yeah,
have a,
yeah.
yeah? So I know the
You
nights
mean
get a little earlier, but at that point, but you're also a game director, so I imagine you also have a lot of late nights as well.
yes. Yeah. I mean, I tend to be. I'm not really a late night person anymore, so I tend to sleep. You know, I'm usually asleep by like midnight or
Right.
one at the latest, and I get up pretty early for kid things. So
Sure.
yeah, it's not like it used to be.
Yeah. No, it's not like it used to be here either. Um, so I really like your game, Metal Hellsinger. I liked it when I did the first video about it back in, I think, May, and I liked it even more when it came out for the full release. It is one of my favorite games of this year. I
Oh,
just
that's
want to
awesome.
congratulate you on the game. How's it doing? How's everyone feeling about the game? Are you guys happy with the reception it's had, or how do you feel about things going forward?
Man, it's been really weird. Because I remember you did I think you did the demo, was it?
Yeah,
You
I did
did
a
kind of early, like a
yeah.
preview, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
know back at that point, most people that were being reached out for videos were just kind of doing like impressions or just playthrough, and I was like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I want to do like an analytical breakdown. That's what I do on my channel, and they gave me the green light for that, and so that was really interesting to be able to just like dive in and do like an analytical review of a demo. I find that to be really fun to do.
yeah, it was cool. But I mean, so that was cool. I remember that. But then, so the game came out, and none of us really knew what to expect, I
Hmm.
guess, because you never really know.
Yeah,
Um,
100,000
and
people can wish list it, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get it, right?
Right, right. So, it went really well, I think. Especially on Steam, people, I don't even, can't even look at Steam anymore because it stresses me out. But I know that it was like overwhelmingly positive, and I just
Hmm.
sort of blacked out when I saw that. So I was like, whatever, it's fine. And you know, it's definitely done. I think better than we had hoped for. We didn't, no, I mean, we were all very close to the game. I know I was. So I was like, I know it's good. I don't know how good it is,
Yeah,
in like a not being me way. And I
yeah.
think a lot of the team had the same. Like we objectively, I knew also that we made a game that wasn't for everybody.
No,
I
yeah.
don't think, I mean, like it is what it is. It's like, it's its own thing, and I think it's unapologetic about it
Yeah,
being its
just
own
in its
thing. And some
tone.
people,
Yeah, just in the tone and music alone,
yeah,
right? You're already
yeah,
focused on a certain audience.
yeah, exactly. So, like, I knew that we weren't going to ship like like a 98 for everybody, like a Last of Us kind of 98. But I knew that there was a chunk of people who were going to be like, we love this game to death,
Yeah,
and hopefully that's enough of them to appreciate it, and hopefully also that there's people that tell their friends who maybe wouldn't have played, or didn't like metal, and that that they would be like, hey, this seems pretty cool. I'll try it, and then they find that they like metal, and then they like the game, and there's a lot of those people out there. So I think in general we're just really stoked that um, people dig it, and hopefully we can get more people to do so over, like playing the demo or picking it up or however.
well, I think near the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if you make several outlets like recommendations, at least like in the indie shooter scene, whether it's YouTube channels or actual gaming outlets. Like people are going to be bringing your game up again once we get near the end of the year. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I speaking for myself, it's definitely going to be in my best of the year video that I do every January, and it would be awesome if if out of nowhere you end up having someone like Angry Joe or something like that, or just mentioning your game, the name will come up again near the end of the year. I think the game
I
will
mean,
probably
they
have some good
did. I don't know
legs.
if you saw it.
Oh, did he?
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, they really fucking loved the game. It was
Nice.
super funny. I
That's
saw the
good.
stream and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Shit.
So yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know. That's
yeah.
great. That's great. And
So
you brought up Last of Us. I mean, like that. Hey, that could be a good direction for a sequel. What do you think about going like a Last of Us style Metal Hellsinger 2, where you just like cut out the combat maybe, and just like maybe you walk with a like an 8-year-old demon next to you maybe, that
oh
take care of the
Jesus.
demon.
I mean, there's
Maybe
a lot of crazy directions we could go. Hadn't
yeah.
thought of that one.
Maybe turn it into like a
But
loot hunting RPG open world kind of thing maybe.
yeah, you're like some oh God, I'm gonna get in trouble. Some sort of gotcha.
Yeah.
Like maybe a match three type of situation. Maybe no, there will be none of those things.
Okay.
But yeah, it's fun to speculate, I guess.
I had these questions kind of set later in my list, but I guess we could get into it now. Now that we're talking about the reception of the game and everything,
Yeah, sure.
how do you feel about like more of the official critical reaction so far? The Steam score is doing really good, but like major gaming outlets, some of them have been hot on the game, some have been a little mild on it. Are there any criticisms that you feel are unfair? Are there any criticisms you agree with? It's okay if you disagree with any that I mentioned in my review. I mean, I have my own criticisms. Is
Yeah.
there anything you want to comment on?
I mean, it's kind of like I said, in that I think you can add a point if you're a fan of metal or a fan of uh, y- y- you know this rhythm games.
Okay.
So I think if the Venn diagram of like stuff that you're interested in is that, then the game automatically skews higher.
Sure.
Um, I do think that the game was penalized in reviews by two things that I really saw. One was length, because people just played through the campaign the way that they did, and they didn't play any challenges,
Oh
and I
yeah.
kind of blame
We're
myself for that
we're gonna
because
get to that. That's
originally,
a point.
yeah, oh, okay, we can talk about that later. So I think those critiques. There's also there's a content thing that it's actually we could have structured the game differently in order to do that, and we had, but then we changed it. So whatever, that fucking ship has sailed.
Okay.
But so that's the perception, and I think a lot of the reviewers that had that negative perception, um, you know, they were like, well, this, and then maybe price point. I don't think so necessarily, but if people just blew through the campaign and played the easiest thing because they were on schedule and they needed to get a review done, which often happens. I remember because I
Yeah.
used to review games many years ago.
Yeah, they pick normal
Um,
and or even easy, and then just
they might
yeah,
pick easy, yeah.
yeah,
It's just not as good an experience.
sure,
So that
sure,
could have happened. Um, And I think I also noticed, and this is maybe not fair, but there are a lot of people that have no rhythm that play the game and are like, I don't, or they have expectations
yeah,
that the game is going to be Doom, and they didn't grok it, and you could say that that's the fault of the developer. I think it certainly is our responsibility to make sure that people understand what they need to do to a certain extent. Um, but I think a lot of the reviews that I read were dismissive in a way that I was like, I don't know, man. Like, you know, I felt like Jeff Lebowski, where it's like, yeah, that's your opinion. I mean, it's fine. You're a reviewer on the internet. That's what you're
yeah,
gonna do.
yeah,
Um, so I don't know. I feel like some places really got it.
yeah,
There are a lot of reviews that I was like, "Yup, that's it. That's what we made." And then there are people who are like, they might have gotten it. They might even have got it, but they were like, it wasn't it wasn't part of their thing.
yeah,
And that's really not. That's just how it is sometimes. So, um, I guess the short answer is I knew it was not going to. I wanted it to be above an 80, just as a as a rule of thumb. I think it landed at a 79 on Metacritic,
Mm.
which is bullshit in terms of the ratings being skewed because of IGN and other stuff, which is just whatever. But
And like my channel's not on there. There's a whole bunch of other channels that talk about games that really like it, and it's not like they're considered.
yeah, yeah. I mean, whatever. It's a number.
Sure.
I don't think it's an unfair number. Like if it was a a 60 or a 65, it'd be like fuck you. That's just not right.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think it's like wildly inaccurate. I think that we made an 80. Like that's what I feel. That's what the game is. You can
Okay.
argue it back and forth. It's like a 77, it's a 83. But that like if I look at everything in the scope of what people expect, that's what we made. Um, and the fact that the game is a 97 on Steam says something else.
Totally. It's
So
gonna be. I mean, it feels to me more like a word of mouth kind of game than anything else.
yeah, I think it is. But at the end of the day, like reviews are just fucking reviews. What are you gonna? You can't take them too seriously either. It's really nice that people like the game. It's wonderful that they're buying it, and all that. But I think for me anyway. Like I've skipped a bunch of games, and I don't want to. After a while, you have to step back from all of it and just be like, I'm glad it's out there, and then just sort of turn away from whatever it is after you've sort of taken it
Mm.
in. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, I'm glad that it's out there and people are enjoying it, and I don't need to see it anymore. Like,
Sure.
it's like it's a thing that's done.
Yeah, you can get really buried in if you just like every
Yes,
day you're just looking for like, hey, what's the latest review of my game that I just spent years of my
exactly.
life on, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it can
it's
be.
just it's not good for you.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on criticism too much, but what one point from my own video, one thing that sticks with me that I wanted to ask about because this starts tying into the development of the game, which I'd like to talk about, is one thing for me that was a negative was boss variation, and I'm
Yeah,
curious.
I can talk about that.
Yeah,
But
I'd love to know like what was the decisions behind the boss, and let's start transitioning into the development process and limitations and ideas that maybe got scrapped. Or I'd love to talk about whatever you can.
yeah, I mean, the thing is that when we started this project, it was not supposed to be as big a project as it turned out to be. There are lots of
All right.
reasons for that, which I won't go into. But the fact is that when we began, we were like, it's going to be a smaller project. It's going to come out earlier, um, and we were, collectively kind of agreed to do that. So what we didn't do is scope. Um, we didn't have the scope for even for bosses at the time. And then when
Okay.
bosses came along, we didn't have the scope to do those
Hmm.
with like unique assets or anything like that because we were only a studio of like 30 people. So and everybody was spoken for doing other things.
Yeah.
And to do proper boss fights,
That's like a year of
like
work.
where it's the whole project. It's
Yeah.
like 3 years of work to do all that stuff.
No, I mean like a boss battle, just to put a team on a boss, like it could take them a year just to make one good
Yeah,
boss
yeah,
fight.
it's so much work. It's an unbelievable amount of work, and we had never done a boss fight. Like, and no one at the studio had ever done bosses before,
Yeah.
so that was a whole other thing. Um, so there's a lot of learning on top of like never having done a rhythm game. So me and some of the other people had obviously made shooters, but like a rhythm shooter, no one's had really ever made that except for BPM, and we didn't see anything that anybody was doing.
Yeah.
I don't think like really throughout the majority of the development of the game, like and then it came out, we were like, oh, that's that,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
not
we
like it's a
continued to
trend or anything.
not so we didn't have a lot of stuff that we could look at. We could look at failed projects, I guess. But so anyway, so the boss thing, it was like we when the project we kind of like greenlit the bigger project, and they really go for it. We still did not have the resources to go like, okay, well, we have a year or whatever it was let's make 8 unique bosses and boss fights. So like that was completely out of scope. We never would have shipped.
Sure.
So the thing that I had decided, I guess before was, okay, well, we're going to have these aspects which are, just visually distinct, and they're behaviorally distinct, but essentially they are the same asset, except for the judge at the end. And of course, would I have liked to have them be unique? Would I have liked the fights to have been more, distinct? Yeah,
Mm.
but I think we really did have, enormous limitations in terms of just the way that the project developed and stuff like that. So we did the best that we could with with the stuff that we did, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, in spite of the fact that I'm playing Elden Ring right now, like going, if we just had
Yeah,
this
so many
much,
bosses.
God. So that's something obviously that we will allocate more
That makes
down the line.
sense. Knowing that it started as a smaller scope project that then
Yeah.
blew up into something big, and now you're like, wow, well now we have like 8 giant worlds, and we're like, well, they need to culminate in something. Well, we need a boss fight at the end. Oh, well, we can't make 8 bosses. Yeah, so
Right.
yeah, no,
Yep.
that all makes a lot of sense.
Yep. That's what happened. So yeah, it's a bummer, but that's game development.
You had just mentioned that you have some experience with other shooters. Could you talk to our audience a little bit about where you come from in game development? What are some of the bigger titles you've been involved with? Get a little background information.
Well, let's see. I guess I can start back in the day. Um, uh, I started or I started in the games industry, at Acclaim doing QA for like on Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, whenever the fuck that was in the 90s.
97
Um,
something, I think.
no, earlier, I think even maybe it was 96 or
Yeah.
95. I can't remember. Maybe it was 97. It was on PC though.
Mm.
Um, Something like around there.
Okay.
And then, yeah, 97 might have been right. And then, so I did that, and then did a bunch of other stuff. I think I quit there after like a year, and then I wound up doing stuff that wasn't games, just like new media, interaction design, and game design.
Did you
And
study?
then
Did you
quit
study
that.
that? Did you study
No,
anything
no,
for game
nope.
design? No.
I did neither thing.
Okay.
It was just um, I was lucky enough to have a person. I was working at this place called RGA at the time in New York, which was they did like, what do you call it? At the time they had this new interactive division. Before that, they were making their whole thing was like doing titles and credits for films. So like they did Seven's credits, if you remember those, if you ever saw
Oh,
Seven, and
wow.
like
Yeah.
Superman and shit like that. Like that was Imaginary Forces, that did it, but they did it in that studio. So anyway, so they had this new interactive division, and it was like right during the Web 1.0 days. So one of the people there who then later became also like head of NYU's game design department, this guy Frank Lance. Um, he was like, when I was working there, I was working there as a production coordinator for like 2 days, and I was fucking garbage at it.
Hmm.
Like, Frank was like, "You shouldn't be doing this. You're a game person. You should be doing interaction design. You should be doing game design. We have this thing." And so I started to do that on like little like web projects and other projects that they did bids on, like they did business stuff for, and ultimately I did that for 4 or 5 years, um, there and at other places, and then I left, to go work in Italy at this tiny driving studio called Milestone, in Milan, and I worked on a not a very good game, first a canceled game, and then another driving game, called, what was it? Force Alfa Romeo, and it was like this very weird game. But I was the principal designer on it.
Wow.
For some reason, they allowed me to do that. I think it was like a 56. or something, and I had a mod team at the time. I was just doing all this crazy stuff. Like I was working on like this crazy mod for Dungeon Siege, and I was doing these things, and I worked on that game, and it shipped. It had like time reversal, um, which was the first. I think it was the first driving game ever to do that before anybody else did
Before
anything
like
like that. I
burnout and
think
all that.
later, yeah, all
Okay.
that stuff. And so, but it was cool. It did some stuff that no other games did, or ever did, like had RPG elements and things like that way, way before anybody else did. And that was fine. And then I think I got an offer at Gorilla to work on what would become Killzone 2.
Okay.
Um, and so after that, I went to Amsterdam and I worked on Killzone 2 for a few years.
What did you do
Uh,
for Killzone 2?
I was like lead. I was like the lead mission designer and the lead writer for the game for like 2 years,
Wow.
and then yeah, and then I quit. Um, right at there, basically there was a just a change of direction for the thing, and I was like, nope, that's not for me, and so
Hmm.
I left before ship. But those guys, they really did a great job with that game. Um, and it wound up doing. I guess it did pretty well. It certainly looked great, and after I quit, I had this offer. I was thinking about going to Sweden, so I was like talking to someone, and they had mentioned that Dice was hiring, or what was I think it was Bad Company 2 at the time. So I was like, okay, that sounds good. So then I went to Sweden in whatever that was, 2007, I guess, and initially I was supposed to work on Bad Company 2, and then I think it got extended. Bad Company 1 got extended, so I wound up working on BC 1 as a senior designer, and then I worked on Mirror's Edge, which was also shipping
Wow.
as like a senior closer to help them. And then finally after that, it was like, okay, now we're going to do Bad Company 2. And so I was lead designer, and I also wrote the game for Bad Company 2, and I did the same thing for Battlefield 3. Um, and then after I think I like did some stuff on BF4, and then I quit. I just wasn't feeling it there anymore, and I went to work for Overkill, who were on Payday 2. I was game director on Payday 2.
Wow. It's quite
Um,
the resume so far.
yeah, it was an interesting run, and then but you will see the through line of my career is that I quit. So then after that, I
Yeah.
was like, fuck these guys. I hated Bo Anderson. He was a fucking scumbag. The guy who left, and we just had like total. It was there was no way I could stay with a person like that. There, he's just a terrible leader in person.
All
So I
right.
was
Well,
like,
you
I'm
guys, you
leaving.
guys heard it here on Mayo's podcast.
I mean, other people have said the
Okay.
same thing.
Okay.
I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody hasn't heard.
Okay.
Um, but so I left. That game did obviously real well. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna do something else now. Um, I'm tired of working for other people. Maybe
Hmm.
I'll try to do something. And I started this studio um, first with myself, and then with three other people. In I guess it was 2014.
Hmm.
Um, and then then we worked on Darkborn. I mean, this is turning into like a weird history lesson, so I don't know. You can
No,
stop me at any time.
I'm interested to hear this. So please.
Yeah, you could go on. So yeah, so I guess we signed a deal with Take Two. Well, technically, it was with Private Division for Darkborn, or what would become Darkborn, for Project White, which was this the first person monster from the perspective of a monster,
Hmm.
um, kind of action RPG. Um, and we worked on that for, I guess it was fucking. I mean, I've been thinking about it for probably 5 years. We worked on it for um, up until I guess it was 2018. And the project was just really difficult. First person combat, melee combat particularly, is
So
just
it's tricky.
unbelievably. It's so hard, especially if you don't have weapons. If you're using like a hand, it's just incredibly difficult to do right.
Mm.
And we really struggled with it. And I think we struggled with a bunch of stuff that was some of which was technology, some of which was design, some of which was just process. New company doing new things. It's hard. So um, we in 2018, I think it was. After many discussions and our best attempt at keeping, at having the game survive, uh, they were like, the private division, that is, they were like, sorry guys, we're gonna pass on the final green light, and let you guys go. And we were like, okay, well that's gonna be rough.
Yeah, that's like
And
years of work, right? It's
yeah, yeah, for me
just
it was like, yeah, 5 years of my life,
God.
or more. And a project that I really did love in spite of all those things that I felt really connected to. So that was really difficult. And then it was even more difficult to be like, or we might be going out of business. So we tried to pitch the game to a bunch of places. There were a bunch of places that really, really wanted the game. But unfortunately, legally, we really had there are clauses in the contract that made it basically impossible for us to get the game picked up. And it's just business. Sometimes that shit happens, but it was really demoralizing. So I think we were maybe like a month away. I want to say like a month maybe, or 2 months of. We had 2 months of money left, and after that, that was the end.
And this is what,
And so
2019 or so?
this is 20. Yeah, this is Wait a minute. No, this is 20. It might be 2019.
Yeah,
Or 20. I can't even
2018.
remember. Yeah, I think it was early. It was like right early 2019. That sounds right. I can't even remember. That's how fucking crazy it is. It might have been like late 2018, but I feel like it was.
Okay.
I feel like it was 2019. Because what wound up happening was we had this Hail Mary, which was Funcom was interested in talking to us. They were interested in the game, but they couldn't get the game, so they were like, "Is there something else that you wanted to do, Dave?" And I think I pitched Rui over the phone or something, who's the CEO, and I said like, "Oh yeah, there's this other thing that I've been thinking about back when I was working on Darkworm, which is this rhythm shooter where you're a demon fighting your way out of hell, and it's sort of a metal album come to life." And he was like, "That sounds interesting. Come pitch, come pitch us in California. We'll
Ah,
be there." And I was like, "Okay." So I did that, and that kind of kicked off what would become the future we had with Funcom. And
so it was your idea. It was one of my questions, like where Metal Hellsinger, did that come from someone on the
yeah,
team, or was it on you in your head? Is something
no,
that
it was mine. It was
okay,
my thing.
okay,
It was
okay.
my thing.
That is wild to hear that story. That you guys spent 5 years trying to put together this game that it ultimately just got buried, and you couldn't do
Yep.
anything with. You were on the verge of closing, and then you were able to pitch Metal Hellsinger to another studio that kept you alive, and now here you are with one of the best games of the year.
It's pretty, like, I can't process it. I think I told this to Alana Pierce,
Mm-hmm.
a similar version of the story, and I think she was like, "Pretty, you should feel pretty good," and
Yeah.
I was just thinking like, "Yeah, I should," but it feels like I also lived through like it was really traumatic.
Well,
Like
it's
even
8 fucking
now,
years.
yeah,
That's
just thinking about how tough it was, like worrying if people were going to have jobs and like if
yeah.
what's going to happen to them and
Oh God! And then you
all
got you
that
guys get
stuff.
picked up, and you start platting everything out before you can even really start building it. COVID happens, right?
Yeah.
And just
Yep.
oh man, God, what a
Well,
fucking nightmare.
we had we were wait a minute. 2019. Wait, when was COVID? I don't even remember.
COVID
Was it
was
2019 or
March 2020. So you guys
Okay,
had a
yeah, that's
year
right.
to a year and a
Yeah.
half of getting started.
Yeah, so that's right. So that's how it was. Yeah, we started working on it. Everything was going pretty good, and then COVID, and we are like, wow, we're not going back to the office anytime soon, are we? And but we did good with that stuff. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of the long short version of how we got here.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't expect that kind of story. But I mean, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't really know what your history was with this studio and working on this game. But it's really interesting to hear all that. I wanted to get a little bit back to what we had mentioned earlier in Metal Hellsinger about the challenge system.
Yeah.
And in my video, I really praised the challenge system. But then you're also talking about how some reviewers just bypassed it. And so I really want to talk about this because I think the challenge system is a really really well implemented part of the game because it shows a new player what the game feels like to play when you're good at it before you're even good at it, right? Like the auto weapon swapping challenge is one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. Because like you could just feel it. You're like, oh wow, okay, so this is what it feels like. Like even if you don't need to be switching weapons, you've already gotten a taste of how it feels to do it, and it can be hard to go back. And then it teaches you just all the wonderful skills that you need to know. It helped me a lot. I'm sure it helped a lot of players, and it also gives you those character upgrades that help you going forward. And so I think there's good incentive to do the challenges, and the challenges teach you great skills. They're not just like get a high score or get a high
No,
score in this
definitely
level.
not.
No, it's use this, master this technique, and then you will
Yeah.
be rewarded. And that's the perfect way to do it. But like you said, it was also easy for a lot of casual reviewers to just push through the campaign. And like I saw this, I read some of the reviews of people saying like, I beat the game and now I'm going back to do the challenges. And they're treating it like an open world RPG, right? Like, oh, I beat the campaign, now I'm going to go explore these little areas and try to find the collectibles. It's not that. And so some reviewers have missed out on, oh God, what's like 30% of the experience or more, which is the challenge system. And you said you could have done a better job with that, and that you had it one way before and you changed it. Could we talk about this a little bit?
Yeah. Um, so I think the challenge is the torments. They definitely had. I remember one of the things that the designers were working on them. Um, their goals was really to treat it as an effectively as sort of tutorials for mechanics
Yeah.
that you needed to know,
Yep.
and that's what you picked up on. So I think that was super good that they did it that they did that way. And then um, the thing the thing that happened is initially we had a structure, which was that you need to do those you need to do X amount of them in order to then unlock the next level.
Okay.
And I think that would have been personally, I think that was a better structure, because it would have educated people. But what we found is that when we gave it to playtesters were like, "Yeah, these are cool, but I just want to play. I want to play the level."
Hmm.
And so we kind of went back and forth on it, and ultimately I was like, "All right, well, give them a clear path to play through the game, let them enjoy it. Don't lock away the goodness, even though we knew that the torments were really
The
good.
challenge is part of the goodness.
Um, it is part of the goodness. I think that it was a mistake to do that,
Hmm.
for all the reasons that we see in the reviews, and
Yeah.
that's on me.
Hmm.
And if I could do it over again, I would definitely not make that decision. But um, we'll never know really,
Could you do
if it would
some?
have mattered.
Could you do something like because I feel like part of it. This is me pretending to know anything about game design again. I feel like part of it is that they are easy to just look at there on the menu and see as something skippable, because you don't even really understand that they're going to give you important upgrades unless you open up each
Yeah,
one and read them. Could you do like a flashing thing on the screen that says play these challenge levels to get upgrades, and make that like a flashy thing that appears the first time the torments appear or something, just to kind of be like, hey, you want to check these
yeah.
out? I don't know, maybe you could do something like that.
I mean, the truth is, we tried to basically do everything possible to get the players' attention, and I guess the fact is it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
That they're easily missed. People, they don't really pop out for people in the way that
Yeah, they
we
don't
would
pop
want,
out.
and that in part is
Yeah, like
sorry,
unlock
go ahead.
upgrades here or something, or just like something like
Yeah,
that.
it's
But
it's not. Yeah, it's like I think we favored the aesthetic of the album cover over
yeah,
usability and discoverability, and it's on us.
they're also called
But
torments. They're called
yeah,
torments, so maybe they sound like
yeah.
you're going in there to suffer.
Mm,
That's just,
well, if
I'm
you
just
played
joking.
the
I'm
hard
just
ones,
joking, but hey, maybe.
no, no, but I mean, if you play, they are, and that's why they're called that. But I mean, if you play the hard ones, they definitely are
Oh yeah,
torments. They're
they
sort of
get
the same.
tough. They definitely get tough
Yeah.
after a while, for sure.
But yeah, whatever. That's to me,
Okay.
that's the big thing that that didn't work. But they are very fun. I
Hmm.
think they teach people well. If you ever play on harder difficulties, you definitely need the sigils. So
Yeah, dude, hard is it's no joke. Even with the upgrades, it's pretty tough.
yeah, yeah, it is. You played through on Beast?
Played through? No. Played?
Played
Yes.
some.
I did play
Yeah, you
some.
played some.
I played a few levels. I'm not going to say that I beat them. I
Yeah,
played them enough to appreciate the difficulty that you guys have on there, right?
yeah, that's fair.
But I also have like I got the next game I got to get to. Hyper Demon came out. Oh, and I got to play that and review that. So
Oh
some
yeah, Hyperdemon
it
looks cool.
Hyper Demon's great.
I really like Devil Daggers,
An-
so I was like, ooh, another one.
yeah, yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Another one, but also not another one, because the whole theory is like flipped on his head, which is so cool.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, because
Check it out.
it's oh, you haven't played it yet. It's not time based survival anymore. It's aggression
What is
based.
it?
It's
Oh, nice.
killing enemies efficiently and faster raises your point score. It doesn't matter how long you stay alive. It's about
Oh, that's
maximizing
all. Well,
damage.
that's actually what we're doing
Yeah,
more, kind
yeah.
of. It's just that ours is less obvious,
Yeah,
probably, than theirs.
it's
I have to check it out though.
it's really good. Yeah, and like I would love to sit down for the next couple weeks and grind beast level Metal Hellsinger. I really would. But like doing the YouTube thing,
Yeah, right.
there's maybe one game a year that I can really afford to like, dedicate myself to. This year it was Sifu, right? And last year it was Streets of Rage 4. The year before that it was Doom Eternal. But if every game that I played that I loved, your game and
Wait,
Turbo, hmm?
which was the one that you dedicated to this year?
Sifu.
Oh, Sifu. Yeah,
Yeah,
Sifu's cool.
yeah. I went on hard on that. I'm doing a guide on it. Like that's the like I can afford about one or maybe two games a year to really like crack open and spend months.
Yeah,
But
that's
this,
the same for me
yeah,
though, and
yeah,
mine is just Elden Ring, and that's pretty much it.
yeah. There's like your game has been one in a long line of great indie shooters this year. I mean, seriously, Turbo
Yeah, man,
Overkill, Project Warlock 2, Warstride challenges, Forgive Me Father came out of early access. There's just so much going on, and
what
it's
is
great.
there's a zillion. There's Sulaco. Those guys are
Sulaco looks
cool.
great. Yeah, Sulaco looks
I
really,
think
really good.
Proteus looks pretty cool.
Proteus is good. I tear it apart for the checkpoint system, but everything else is great. Everything else, but
Oh,
I'm still playing it.
I didn't play it very. Oh, forgive me, Father. Interesting.
Forgive me.
Now I'm like looking. That looks
Yeah,
cool.
Forgive Me Father's really good. Yeah,
Didn't
beautiful
Ultra
art
Kill
style.
like a new Ultra Kill
Yeah,
come out? Oh, this looks fucking good.
Ultra Kill Act 2 just came out. Wait, what are you looking at? Forgive Me
I'm
Father?
looking. Forgive me, Father. I'm like, oh, I gotta get this.
Beautiful art style, very satisfying combat. Yeah, it's very
Oh
good.
yeah, I'm definitely getting this immediately.
It's good. It's good. It's one of my favorites
That's
this year.
cool.
I didn't review it this year, but I did a sponsored video on it last year in early access and gave them a bunch of feedback. And they made a bunch of changes, a bunch of fixes for the final release, and it's really good. Really
Oh, that's
good game.
awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it looks great. I just picked it up.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Good. I
Um,
wanted to ask if I've been thinking a lot, and I'm going to be doing this video on kind of like on Doom Eternal's influence on a lot of games, whether it be direct or indirect,
yeah.
and whether it's talking about ammo management or weapon variation or speed or mobility or tone. I feel like this year I'm starting to finally see the influence that it's starting to have. I can see it in
Mhm.
Turbo Overkill. I can see it in Forgive Me Father. I can see it in a lot of in Shadow Warrior 3, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily asking, was Doom Eternal an influence on your game in any way? I'm more asking what games have been an influence on the development of Metal Hellsinger. Because I see some of the Doom Eternal DNA in your game with the weapon swap incentives and the dash and the movement and the glory kills, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you were inspired by it. It just maybe just happened to be doing some similar things. What was inspiring to you during the development process?
Well, oh, sorry. I just had to check something. The interesting thing is that the uh, the main influence, the reason that I started the game was I was playing Doom 2016.
Right.
So Doom 2016 is really like the spiritual whatever ancestor of most of our mechanics. I prefer 2016 to Eternal.
Okay.
But there's things about Eternal I do like. And
That's where I see. That's where I see like the fast weapon variety and the dash. Like that's Eternal.
yeah,
But then your tone
yeah.
and like the original glory kill stuff is more 2016.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a fusion of those things. I think that the Eternal does some stuff great,
Mm.
and like the dash for sure. Some of just, like a lot of their like enemy to character to weapon interactions also are super cool. And like there's nothing wrong with Eternal. I just for me, I prefer 2016 just vibe wise.
Sure. No,
And I
that's
think
one of the main things. Usually, when you talk to someone who prefers 2016 over Eternal, they're usually not talking gameplay or mechanics. They're usually talking tone,
yeah,
and that's just totally respectable. I say sometimes, even though I tend to prefer Eternal's more like variety look of like going to different worlds and stuff. Sometimes I pop on 2016 and I just look around. And I'm like, dude, this mood,
yeah,
this mood's really
yeah.
good.
It had a feeling that was pretty consistent.
Yeah,
Um, and because no one had done it like that before, I think it resonated.
yeah,
And for me, it definitely did. But Eternal has a lot of stuff that's really great. So we took some stuff from Eternal for sure. Like we were looking at some of their enemy patterns. We were looking at some of their
mm,
dash stuff. Um, I mean, I looked at Destiny stuff too, just
yeah.
because their melee is so superb and their through the gun is so good also. So we looked at a lot of that stuff. I think that our combat team did an extraordinary job with using Unity, which is not a great you don't think of as being able to make great shooter experiences, or at least I can't think of many on Unity. But I think they really did a terrific job. Like I'm really happy with our combat feel in like 99% of the cases. I think it really came together well. So um,
Was Dusk done in
yeah,
Unity? I don't remember.
I don't know. I would guess Dusk is done. Yeah.
Yeah, might have been.
Um,
I'm not sure.
I think yeah, I think so. But I have to ask Dave.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
You guys know
I
each other?
mean, what I know, Dave Oshrai. Yeah, I don't know Dave Szymanski.
Oh, okay.
But I know that the guy, whatever, running New Blood, who seems to be all hooked up. I guess they're all part of New Blood now. I don't even know. It's very confusing to me. But they're all great. So I love all their stuff.
Did you get to play Dead Link yet?
You know what's that?
Dead Link is it's a roguelite shooter. It's basically Doom Eternal's weapon and mobility mechanics inside of Hades' a roguelite system.
What? Hold on a second. What's it called? Dead Link?
Dead Link. It comes out in early access on October 18th, and it is a must play in your life, Dave.
Dead Link Pages Torn? Is this it?
No, Dead Link. Dead Link. It's one
Oh,
word.
one
Yeah, Dead
word.
Link.
I was like, this doesn't look good. Dead Link.
Yeah,
Dead Link. Oh,
it
ooh.
is unbelievably good. I did a video on it when they did a Steam Next Fest demo because they actually reached out to me in the spring because of some of the stuff I talk about in some of my videos, and they thought that
Yeah.
I would kind of be on the same mentality as they were working on it. And so before the game was even public and beyond friends, like they hooked me up with it and they were like, "What do you think about this?" And I played it and I was like, "This is your first game, seriously?" Because like, don't change anything about this. Like, you guys have
Yeah.
struck gold. Like, I helped him with like
It's
some,
really cool.
yeah, I helped with like some user feedback stuff, some balance stuff. But I was like, mechanic wise, don't change a hair on this game's head. And it is
Right.
unbelievably fun and addictive. And when it comes out in early access, man, you got to try it out. It's
I mean, I
so
wish
good.
looked at it. I'm ready for it. It looks good.
Dead
I
Link's
love all these like crazy indie shooters that are coming out now. It's fucking sick.
Yeah, it's really good. You have an infinite ammo shotgun that has to be reloaded every 4 shells, but then you have a rocket launcher that only holds 2 rockets. And so the whole gameplay loop is like balancing the gun that has to be reloaded with the gun that doesn't, but has to get ammo, and you get ammo through like marking enemies with the grappling hook, and it's such a cool rhythm. You're gonna like it a lot.
I'm stoked. This looks cool.
Yeah. Let's see what other questions I have here. Hey, so we talked about how you're a father. What kind of games do you like seeing your kids play, and are you introducing them to any classics?
Uh, I mean, I like them play. I basically like them playing whatever they want. I
Mm-hmm.
think the like my oldest daughter, I introduced her to Pokemon, and that has been a thing for
Mm-hmm.
her whole existence.
Okay.
Um, and she's like plays a lot of Genshin Impact, and some Brawl Stars. Like she plays some mobile games, and I like that she was playing Persona because she's older, a little bit older now. So she's playing Persona 5. She dug
Okay.
that. And then my other daughter also plays. She plays less, but she also plays like she has her own like things that she likes. I don't know. I mean, like I would like them to play anything that is cool.
Hmm.
Like I don't have any particular things that I want them to play. Like they don't need to play my games.
Do they? I mean, do you
Um,
get them playing Metal Hellsinger?
I can't remember if she. I think if he played. Um, wait, no, but no, I don't shove the games at them.
Oh,
Really,
okay.
I'm just like if you want to play it, you can play it, but otherwise, um, it's fine. So maybe yeah, if maybe they'll play it someday, but we'll see. There's no like requirement.
Fair enough.
Um,
I have a few more questions on Metal Hellsinger. I don't want to take up too much of your day. I know it's
yeah,
late at
it's fine.
night. I want to know what were some of the biggest challenges designing a rhythm first person shooter?
Boy, I think what wasn't a challenge. Um, I think when when we did the prototype, um, I my suspicion was like I looked at I knew what a good shooter was because I'd made a bunch of them, and we have people in the studio that made a bunch of them, so I know I think I have a pretty good idea what it feels like to have good like through the gun and have good character interaction, because of weapons and like that kind of stuff. But what we didn't really know, and I also knew what a good rhythm game felt like, because I had played Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and other people had done the same. But we didn't really know what the fusion of those things would be like. And the
Mm-hmm.
only example that anyone had seen at the time, I think, was a failed harmonics game. Um, and I remember looking at it. Can't remember what it was called. Uh,
I don't know.
there's video. There's video of it out there, and what it is, it's like a shooter made by people who don't know how to make shooters with a bunch of stuff happening. And that was just what I was looking at it like this is never going to work, in my opinion. Like I could see why it failed. Um, there was a lot of UI. It was really confusing. It didn't feel like a shooter. It was like all electro, a bunch of stuff. And so the hard, I think that the first difficult thing was kind of identifying um, what was gonna feel right. What was the minimal amount of stuff that we had to do to make it work. And so we sort of landed on very quickly of like, okay, well maybe this sort of on the beat metronome thing will work. Um, and that became that became the armature of like the game that we built around was like, okay, well we got this thing. And then when the sound and music people got involved, which was I don't remember, but pretty we had the sort of tier system and all that stuff. We were thinking about, the multipliers and what they would do, and we knew that it changed stuff for the player. But they were like, maybe we could have because I knew that we wanted this, we wanted metal and stuff, and we kind of talked about vocals, but how do we do it in the right way? And they were like, well, we could maybe do it. Why don't we do it at the peak of the song, at the 16x, the vocals come in, and I was like, "Is that gonna work? You think?" And they were like, "But I don't know." And I was like, "Well, only one way to find out."
Yeah.
So they, and so a lot of what was difficult in the project was just not knowing, because there really were no examples. So there was like all of the stuff with are the vocals going to work? As soon as Stunna, who's the Dark Tranquility singer, as soon as we got back his track and they put it in and we played it with like increasing instrumentation and then the vocals, it was like, yep, that works. Okay, we're done. And that was a big deal, because
Yeah.
that set us on a path. And there was tons of shit like that on the game, where um, we didn't know like a lot of the really fiddly stuff that like I'm not calling out BPM because BPM isn't good. I think BPM is very good in a lot of ways, but something that we had a lot of back and forth about was, well, should we have it so you can't fire
I was about to
or you
mention
miss
that.
off beat?
Yeah, that's a big
And I was
difference.
like, yo, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to mention that because that's a huge difference between your games.
Yeah. Well, what I feel as a shooter person is that not being able to fire feels shitty,
It does. Yeah.
and I would rather you fail I would rather you fail and not be effective than have you not be able to use something. Like that's just like it's a shooter thing that if you make shooters, like if it doesn't work, it feels really really bad. So, and even though I understand that some people really like that, and that's a thing. For us, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense because we were a shooter first. We weren't a rhythm game first, and that was the direction that I chose to take, and I think it was the direction that for us was a good direction. Um, and so, being shooter first means a bunch of stuff like that. It means like that the gun does fire just as less effective.
Yeah.
Any number of other things um, that favor that kind of like, okay, we're going to let you do your thing. You don't have to fire on beat. Okay, the enemies aren't necessarily going to all move on beat. Things that make it feel more organic, and not as scripted or prescripted. Um, I think is where we land. But that stuff. So that stuff. It's like it just took a while for all that stuff to kind of sift. So you could see what you had. And then I don't know other difficult things. I mean, just the whole process of like getting the artist signed. This is like outside of the game. but you know that it's just it was hard.
How do you decide on that art
Um,
direction of that kind of classic God of War kind of still comic book, like twisted metal sort of art style? How do you decide on that? Was it
I
just
mean,
like
I had
budget?
a
Like, well, we can't do full 3D
yep,
rendered cutscenes. Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
It was a scope. It was scope.
It works to
Um,
your benefit, though. It's so much more interesting to look at, I think.
yeah, I love the. I think you know this was this Ukrainian studio roommate that did the art, and I think they just killed it.
Yeah.
They did a great job, and we didn't have the time or the people to do full rendered cutscenes, and like the bosses, we didn't. Um, you know, the scope when the scope went up, it was like, well, we still can't do
Yeah.
full 3D stuff. We didn't have the capacity to do like in-game narrative stuff, you know, like which is what would have made the story much better, obviously, is if you experience the story in the level. We really couldn't do that. So a lot of the narrative critiques we got, I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, I know that because we had to basically build the narrative in these like little, you know, in these little illustrations, and that's it. And there was no way to have any kind of emotive reactions or anything because you know they're cutscenes. We didn't even have the fidelity of
Yeah.
like illustration to communicate stuff, and we definitely couldn't tie it to things that you did in the level so that it had impact or landed.
Right, like
So
having
like
missions or something like that.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean,
I'm glad there's no characters coming along and stopping you in the middle of a level and
it
talking
would
to
have
you,
been
though.
weird.
That would have been really weird. Yeah.
It would have been weird. But I mean, there's things that we could have done. For instance, like with you know each boss defeat. You know, there's something that happens, or you
Yeah.
know, there are places there were opportunities to do stuff if we had bandwidth potentially, but we
Mm.
didn't. So we did what we did, and I think it worked out pretty good. Is there any other stuff that made was difficult?
I wanted
Yeah,
to
I mean,
ask about the tempo variation because that's another thing that sets you apart from BPM. At BPM, every single song is exactly the same tempo, and you guys have variation across your boss tracks, different levels. I think the last level of the game, the song is the slowest BPM of the game. I actually struggled with it. I was trying to shoot too fast.
oh,
And
wait, BPM is the same BPM
it's one of
every level.
that's I think that's why it's called BPM because it's just one. But and that's a bad joke.
Yeah, yeah,
But no, that was one of my main criticisms with BPM when it came out. I was like, why is every single song the exact? I tested it. I lined them up and
really.
on the computer. Every single song is literally the same tempo, and you
What
never
was it? It's
fire.
140,
I don't know what it was.
144.
I don't know what it
Oh,
was,
interesting.
but like every level, every fight is clicking to the same exact tempo. Not just I'm not
Oh,
just saying
okay.
4/4. I'm saying the tempo is the same. And that was one of the first things I looked
Crazy.
at with your game. I was like, is there tempo
Yeah, that's fun.
variation? And in the demo, the boss track is faster than the main
Yeah,
level.
yeah, it's
And
much
and
faster.
I was like, I'm sold. Like you already got
Yeah,
me by that point. So was
yeah,
that
that's
was
crazy.
yeah.
How did I not notice that? But you were saying, yeah, was that
Was that tricky?
intentional? Are
No,
you
was that a challenge to do?
No, I mean
No.
that was like the challenging part, I guess, is that we would have sometimes people like QA would be like, "Hey, this I can't figure out the beat in this track, because it's a little weird." So sometimes it would be you would have issues with the actual content of the song, and then sometimes people I wouldn't say that people struggled with tempo on any of our songs, but sometimes you would have stuff where you would come off of one level and then be like, "Oh, it's tougher now because I'm used to the other one." But
Mm.
I don't really notice it as a problem, and certainly like the composers, like we were just doing whatever was a good song, you know.
Did you have to
Um,
adjust animations or anything? Like when you reload on the beat on a song that's slower, is the reload animation slowed down to
yes,
compensate? It is? Okay.
but it does it dynamically.
Yeah.
Everything scales to the BPM of the track,
Yeah.
so like reloads and
Yeah.
firing rate and stuff like that. So what winds up happening is, like on super fast tracks like Neil, you will notice like you can do stuff on on those levels you can't do in other levels. Like I think you could fire on threes with the pistols
Wow.
almost on beat. You might actually be able to do it on beat, which is what we all wanted. The pistols fire on triples on threes. So yeah, it's interesting though. You can definitely do some tricky stuff if you pay attention to like what the tempo is. You can pull off some stuff with some weapons that you wouldn't think you could do. So it's interesting. There's definitely things that are worth experimenting with.
If you were to go forward with a sequel or another rhythm game, yeah, with the experience that you have with it now, would you be interested in going with some more ambitious rhythms? Like I'm waiting for a swing beat song. I'm waiting for like a do do ga do da da do. I'm waiting for a swing beat. I'm waiting for something maybe in like 5/4 time, because everything you do have the tempo variation, but everything is a 4/4 song with like your standard, downbeat, upbeat,
We
and
will
so
definitely do different times. Yeah, we will definitely be able to do that.
that's cool. Guys,
We're
that's the
we've
next
talked
thing I'm
about.
looking for. Now that I see tempo variation, I'm like
Yeah,
now just I'm just waiting for a swing beat, man. I want to
yeah,
play with something to that because I love swing beats.
yeah. We'll definitely be looking at all that
Are you
stuff.
are you thinking? I don't know if you can talk about this, but are you thinking about a follow up? I mean, because the story kind of leads me thinking that this is just the beginning.
Yeah, we are, but I can't commit to it. Obviously, either, at least publicly.
Yeah,
But that definitely would love to make another one,
yeah,
whether it's now or, in some indefinite future. Who knows? But we are watching to see
yeah.
how, metal does, and if it does well, then it's definitely something we'd like to do.
That's awesome. That's probably a good place to end it. Just talking about the possible future and what you'd like to do, what you're prepared to do. Is there anything else you want to get to before we close up here? Anything you want to mention or talk about?
No, I mean, I appreciate having the chat. It's been super cool.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And I don't think I have anything else, just shout out to everybody that played the game. Thank you. And to you too. We appreciate it.
That's great. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and close up here. Dave, thank you very much for coming on here. I don't always get directors of games on here, so it's been really nice to have you on and get some insight into the development process of Metal Hellsinger. Everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.